Pete Thamel wrote an in-depth story earlier in the week about what all new Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti is having to deal with in his first month on the job. And he's got four main priorities. One, integrating USC and UCLA into the conference for 2024, exploring the new media rights deal for the expanded college football playoff, focusing on name, image, and likeness, and what all that could mean for the conference and, I guess, college football, the whole landscape as a whole. And as we have talked about on the show several months ago, completing that massive television contract that's worth more than $7 billion, which was negotiated by his predecessor, Kevin Warren. Now, an industry source told Thamel these deals are not done, and they aren't what they were represented to be from the standpoint of the NBC deal and all the availability of all members to participate in November games in primetime. So, to reiterate, the Big Ten does not have completed long-form contracts for the TV deals. There are outstanding issues that apparently need to be resolved, the biggest of which appears to be with NBC's night games and the fact that power schools like Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State don't play night games in November, which I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't even really realize was a thing. I know that people had told me that in the past, but if you're not looking for it, it doesn't appear to be a thing. But it does make sense, I suppose, right? Michigan didn't even have lights in their stadium for like 10 years, or until about 10 years ago. With the cold and the snow, it's better for the fans that are traveling to be able to play day games, right? You don't want to be driving at night on snowy roads 3 hours back from, Columbus or whatever. So apparently that's not the only thing that's come out of this. Quoting from the article, in 2016, when the Big Ten announced its long-term television deal with Fox and ESPN, the announcement did not include all of the details. One of the things that didn't get disclosed at the time, nor as the new deal was being discussed in recent months, was that the Big Ten Network had acquired all of the league's programming rights back in 2016 through an undisclosed date. The length of that deal with the Big Ten Network from 2016 is carried at least through the current deal, which has been announced through the 2029 and 2030 season. So that explains why Fox was in the negotiating room with the other networks and the Big Ten, right? Because the Big Ten didn't really have anything to sell. All of this is sub-licensing, which means that the Big Ten championship that NBC got, well, hold on, we'll get to that. Let's get to that. On top of the night game issue, which we'll touch on more in a bit, you've also got some financial issues going on in the conference, right? Quoting from Thamel's article, Big Ten schools have seen potential revenue disappear the past few months from a contract that was announced back in August as being worth an average of nearly $1 billion per year through the 2029 football season. Now, here's the kicker. More than $70 million in total is suddenly in flux, nearly $5 million per school, and it has left administrators around the league seeking answers and calling for financial accountability. Now, continuing on, it says there's tens of millions of dollars of value in the NBC primetime deal in flux, as Petitti has been racing to ensure it keeps as much of its original value as possible. Now, let's not get it twisted, right? This sounds disastrous, but this contract is going to get done. You're already seeing Penn State and Ohio State agree to play night games in November this season, so they're playing ball. Nothing makes people give up their principles like a fat check, right? But what about that $70 million price tag that we just mentioned, right? Schools have discovered that they're going to have to pay back nearly $70 million to Fox, like $40 million for the 2026 Big Ten championship game that Kevin Warren guaranteed to NBC without the permission of Fox, who, as we just mentioned earlier, owns the rights to all the Big Ten games through at least 2030, and then another $25 million to Fox for the lost games during the COVID season. This whole thing is insane. The schools, coaches, and networks are also pushing back on some other things about the deal. Kevin Warren apparently didn't do a very good job communicating with the schools about the night game situation, or really anything at all, right? Y'all remember when I mentioned that there were some things that would come out about how disastrous Warren's relationships with the schools actually were, right? The article states, historically in the Big Ten, after the first weekend in November, schools were not required to play night games for a myriad of reasons, health recovery and campus logistics among them. These were known in league circles as, quote, tolerances, and prior television contracts accounted for them. It says NBC was surprised, and I was surprised said Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel. We had not discussed, and I had not discussed with anyone in the league to change the tolerances we had agreed upon years ago. Coaches are also unhappy about the lack of transparency in the negotiations and the amount of games that will be available only on streaming. Now, that's mostly a basketball situation, right? You'll get the random Indiana-Rutgers football game on Peacock, but there's going to be a lot more basketball games streaming on Paramount Plus, Peacock, linearly on FS1. Remember, there's no ESPN here, so you're not going to get Michigan State on Saturday afternoon on ESPN. College Game Day is not going to be making their way to Indiana-Purdue, after last season. Like from the article, it says this: Izzo added that he has concerns on the amount of games available only on streaming and said that would be among his first questions to Petitti as, quote, "It was not discussed with us coaches at all." He said, "Those are some things I'd like to see with the new commissioner, that there's some transparency in working together. For our league to continue to grow and evolve in this new era, I think at the very minimum, the veteran coaches like Izzo and Purdue's Matt Painter should have a direct line of communication and a voice in the conversation." Now, here's the thing. If you think coaches have any say in realignment or in television contracts or whatever else, you'd be dead wrong. These guys get paid to coach ball, wave to fans, hop on weekly coaches shows, maybe do a couple of ads to try and sell some more season tickets. This stuff is at a way bigger level. This is the president of the school level. But I don't think that necessarily means that they're wrong, right? There should at least be some communication so these guys know what they're getting into. Like, I am certain it is more difficult to recruit for Izzo and that bunch of basketball coaches today than it ever was before, considering ESPN is, the heart of regular season college basketball. But they're still going to be on somewhere, and those coaches are still going to get some fat paychecks, etc. We'll see what ends up coming out of this, but I got to tell you, it is certainly entertaining to see the mess that Kevin Warren has left here. The guy tried to cancel the 2020 college football season. He helped start the alliance. He successfully blocked early college football playoff expansion. All that ended with him taking USC and UCLA from the Pac-12, who he had partnered with in the alliance. He got a ridiculous TV contract, but in the process, again, has left a mess for the rest of the conference to clean up in the meantime. Like, Warren wanted to make college athletics more like the NFL, but this stuff does appear like the higher-ups are not as interested in, the complete and total professionalization of amateur sports. I'm curious what they get. I know that the deal will get done. It will get finished. Everything will be fine. But I'm just curious to see what Tony Petitti does. What is his relationship like? Are you going to have, coaches immediately running after him, ADs running after him? Is he going to try and cancel stuff over whatever may end up happening next? Hopefully we don't have another pandemic anytime soon. But the way that Kevin Warren handled things, I thought was, for lack of a better word. Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter @GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.